Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever in the world you are connecting from. First thing that I want to say is I hope you are all staying safe, healthy, sane, strong in the middle of this very difficult time that we're all going through. And before introducing our panel, I just want to say that this is perhaps the first time in the history of humanity, that we're all going through the same thing at the same time. I don't think there's any other time in history that we have experienced this level of sameness throughout the world. There's a lot of people who are suffering directly. They are sick. Their family members are getting sick or dying. Economically and financially, many people are suffering. So because we're all going through this, it is important for us to say as well that we're not alone. And it is very, very important for you to know that there are many communities out there that are supporting people with their conversations, with their Zoom meetings, getting together in social happy hours, whatever it is. So if by any chance you feel lonely, you feel isolated during these times, please reach out to others. You're not alone. I have come across many of my friends who are either single or living by themselves. They live in countries where they don't have their families around, and we hear you, we empathize with you. And the best thing to do during this time of crisis, if you are feeling lonely or isolated, is make sure that you are reaching out to others, that you are joining the many, many things that are happening with many, many communities all over the world, trying to do something to bring people together, even if it's online. So I want to say that because not only is it painful what we're going through right now, but it's also painful to see that many people are going through this and they feel so lonely, right? And I hope that you know that, once again, you're not alone. We're all going through this suffering in different levels. And it's important for you to know that you're going to be supported and people are there for you if you reach out to them. And if you are listening and you know of somebody who is alone, please reach out to them every now and then. Send them a text message, call them, send them an email, just check in to make sure that they are doing well. This is the time for community. And I am thinking and reflecting every day about how, through this very painful experience that we're going through, one of the silver linings that we can collect out of this experience is the fact that we're getting together closer to each other, supporting each other more, collaborating with each other. And I think that's going to be the main lesson learned out of all these things that we're going through during this time. So I'm hoping that you know you're not alone. Join any community. I'm very happy to be joined today by a group of HR leaders. And we wanted to put this conversation together to talk a little bit about what each of them is doing in their own organizations and even in their own lives, with family and their different responsibilities, to cope with all that's going on, to continue operating. And, some of their insights, their stories, the things that they're going through, whether some of them may be perhaps a little bit more painful, some others are successful stories in the middle of all this difficulty. So I just wanted to put this together to inspire everybody, but at the same time to make sure that you're walking away with some nuggets of information and actionable items that you can replicate, whether in your life, individually, with your family, or in your company. Before letting them introduce themselves, I want to thank everybody who is connected to this call. And of course, I want to ask you where you're connecting from. The reason, I always say this, but the reason why I do these sessions on LinkedIn Live is a very simple reason to explain. I like to provide people a bridge to connect among themselves. So one thing that you're going to see on the chat in the LinkedIn Live is that many people are going to be making comments that are going to resonate with you, and you are literally one click away from connecting with them. Just click on their names and send them out a message, connect with them. Make sure that not only you take this opportunity to learn from this group of HR leaders, but at the same time, you're taking this opportunity to build community and to connect with others. That's why I do this on LinkedIn Live. So we're going to be doing a round of introductions. If each of these HR leaders will be introducing themselves. and then we're going to get into some questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. So Meredith, let's start with, I'm going to start with you because you're first on my screen. So do you want to say, of course, your name, where you are right now, and a little bit more about your work in HR?
Yep. So I know there's 6 of us on this screen, but we've been doing a lot of Zooms, and some of them are 9 people, and we've been calling it the 9 box. We plot each other on the 9 box. I just have to put that out there. It's a funny HR joke. So I'm Meredith Van Ewen. I am the VP of People and Culture for Sterling. Sterling is a global background check organization. I am based in London. Currently my sitting in my kitchen. I'm at home with my 2-year-old and my husband, who is also working from home. I lead up the international HR organization for our company. We're about US based, about 5,000 people around the world. And my teams span from Vancouver to Sydney, Manila, Mumbai, and everything in between. And we're in a place right now where we have gotten all 5,000 of our employees from working in the office to working from home. It was a feat, but we did it in a few days, and something we'll talk a little bit more practically about as we go.
Awesome, Meredith. Thank you. And we definitely want to hear about the experience of London, being in London right now, and also a little bit about how you're coping with sending people to work from home in basically overnight, because that's what everybody had to do over the past 2 or 3 weeks. Candy, hello.
Hi, I'm Candy Gongora. I am the VP of People and Organizational Excellence. And so the groups that I oversee include sales, operations, center of excellence, people experience, and strategy. So I work for Goodway Group, and we are a digital marketing company, and we have actually been remote for 12 years. But we still have challenges, because even though we didn't have to go remote overnight, we have now kids at home and different things that we're dealing with. So I am located in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area.
Awesome. And what you have in the background is not a virtual background, it's your actual office.
It's my home office. I'm here on Zoom calls all day, every day. So I had to have a nice space to work in. So.
Awesome. Can you let us know what the words are? I see friends, believe, family. What else do you have in there? Thankful.
I have laugh, grateful, love what you do, love, follow your dreams, blessed. And then I also have my vision board, and then I have the word wolf, because I have 4 dogs that are my coworkers.
Awesome. Well, that is a fantastic reminder of being grateful for what we have, especially now, right? So thank you, Candy. Mike, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So my name is Mike Vaughn, and I am based here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm the head of talent and our HR business partner organization for a company called Framatome. We are based in Paris, but I head up here the North American operations. We're about 2,500 employees, and we have a mix. We have a mix of engineering, we have a manufacturing organization, and then we had field service operations. So we're a mixed bag when it comes to what we're doing currently. We have anybody who can work from home. We've got them remote, and that is a culture shift for us. But our manufacturing operations and our field service operations, obviously, we're a critical resource to the power grid. So, we are in constant movement. So it's creating some challenges just in terms of we're interacting with people that are not just in our company, but in other companies. So it's quite difficult and challenging, which I'm sure we'll get into. I myself have been working from home for about 2.5 years now, so not quite a shift, but for the company itself, it's been quite a challenge.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the work that you're doing to keeping our lights on. Thank you, Garrison.
It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do Zoom calls because of that. So thank you so much. Hey, Garrison, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
So my name is Garrison Gibbons. I am the head of people at Notch. Notch is a marketing tech platform. So basically we read content intelligence for different content for various brands like JP Morgan Chase, Walmart, and other Fortune 500 brands. We're a small startup, so we're about 50 people. So most of our employees are based in New York, but we do have remote employees in LA, Texas, and Boston. We also have remote employees on our engineering team that are based in Romania and Argentina. So we've been working with them, and we've been remote now for about 3 weeks. So we're kind of in the getting adjusted to being remote, but a lot of our employees are based in New York and thus have been displaced throughout the United States, kind of as many people have left the city. So we're working with a lot of people who are at their family homes or with bad Wi-Fi, you know, who have no home office. So we've been having to adjust and make sure that we provide people with the ability to connect, whether that be offering them Wi-Fi, giving them additional monitors, things of that nature. So really working on the fly to become remote quickly, because we weren't a remote workforce. We only had a handful of remote employees. But because we have those handful of remote employees, I think the adjustment hasn't been too challenging. But still, I think from an outward perspective, we've always done in meeting clients with, you know, our prospective people or people that we want to work with. So because of that, we've never really had to do remote sales. So I think that's been a real challenge for the business, is shifting our actual outward facing brand to remote has been a unique challenge for us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Garrison. And we're going to get a little bit into the details of how you're coping and dealing with all that. Tali, hi.
Hi. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joined this call. Thank you so much for your participation. I'm Tali Schwager. I currently head up people operations at CoinDesk. CoinDesk is a news, data, research, and events company focused on cryptocurrency and the digital transformation of money. We are based in New York, and we too have transitioned to working from home about 3 weeks ago, like Garrison's company. And it's been quite the adjustment for me personally as well. I'm so used to having that face-to-face interaction and working, you know, just directly with people. So doing it through a screen is definitely very different for me and for the workforce. We are spread around the globe as well as across the United States. So some of us are remote, so it hasn't been too challenging, but ad hoc, we do provide, you know, whatever support we can to employees, whether it's with equipment needs or whether it's, you know, just emotional support. I can get into the tactical of that in this call, but definitely an adjustment, and definitely striving to support the workforce as best as I can, being the only HR person on the team. So
absolutely not an easy tasks, not an easy you know, thing to do right now. I want to ask you guys one question, very human to begin with. And I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about it while I go and ask something to the audience. The question is or the comment is to say one word that reflects how you're feeling right now about all that's going on. Just one word. And I'm going to go around. So think about it. And in the meantime, I'm going to go to the audience. Once again, thank you everybody for joining. Please let us know where you are connecting from. And if you have any questions for this amazing group of HR leaders from very different industries, dealing with a number of challenges that sometimes are similar, sometimes are very different in nature. Some of them are in the epicenter of all that's going on, like Garrison and Tali, who are in New York. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. I'm going to try to read them as much as possible. They go sometimes pretty quickly. So I'm going to go to the one word that defines how you are feeling right now, very quickly, like a lightning round. Tali, I'm going to start with you.
Hopeful.
Hopeful. Garrison?
Yeah.
I was going to say hopeful, so resourceful.
Sorry.
You can say the same thing. Mike?
Optimistic.
Optimistic. Candy?
Thankful.
Meredith?
Inspired.
Awesome. Very, very positive. And
very positive words.
Yeah, very positive words. And I just want to tell everybody that this group of HR leaders, they are dealing with an everyday challenges and complexities that probably are taking a lot of their mental bandwidth. So I'm very happy to hear that you're staying very positive. So let me just go straight into one of the main things that I wanted to ask you is, if you can say the main challenge that you are dealing with right now from your HR leadership position, what that challenge is, and what are you doing to resolve that challenge? So the one main challenge you're dealing with right now, and how you are coping or dealing with that challenge. So open question for anybody who wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can start. So because we're a startup company, we've been on a hyper growth stage. So we closed our Series B in early 2019. And so since then, it's been like, we're going to double our workforce. We're going to, triple our revenue. So we've been in that hyper growth perspective since I've started with the company. Because of that, a lot of my KPIs as a team have been hire, expand. So when this happened overnight, that kind of immediately changed my entire KPI around hiring. What is going to happen with hiring? How are we going to hire people remotely? What is going to happen with the economy? And are we going to increase that hiring in the next few months? Are we going to do a hiring freeze over the next few months just to kind of slow down hiring? So I would say one of the biggest challenges has just been that like stark adjustment to my KPI and kind of refocusing on how I can better suit the company. So there's been a lot of inner turmoil with myself around how can I remain productive? How can I be seen as doing good work when a lot of my work had been hiring? So I would say one way I'm coping with that is by finding new KPIs to focus on, which there are a lot of them in a startup, obviously. So I think it's been helped me be able to refocus my day-to-day work, but it has been a challenge. And so any heads of talent or recruiters out there that are struggling with that, definitely lean on each other and find solutions. There's tons of back-end work that I have my recruiter working on right now that isn't necessarily just sourcing people to close every single role. It's sourcing people for the future, or fixing our interview process, working on a charter for what our interview process is. So there's a lot of back-end work that we're doing right now that we've been meaning to do, but haven't had the time to do. But I would say that's been a challenge, is just the refocus of my KPIs and my expectations for my role.
Awesome. Thank you, Garrison.
And to kind of follow on from that, I think one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing and my organization is facing right now is productivity on a few levels. I think on one level, it's productivity, similar, Garrison, to what you had said around, people had one task to do, and now that they may not be able to do that. We're trying to look at productivity and resources across our global organization. While we haven't had the message that we're not going to have any redundancies or rifts, that's our ultimate goal. And so what we're trying to do is reallocate resources across the organization, because we're going to have some departments that are super busy right now and some that are not as busy. And I think a few of the challenges in that are, one, the people that aren't as busy are not comfortable raising their hand, because they're going to be worried for their job security. We're not able to say we're not letting anybody go, even though, as I said, that's our intention. So there's an aspect of job security. There's an aspect of ego. Nobody wants to actually say I'm not busy. And of course, on the flip side of that, everybody that is busy is saying I'm busy, I'm drowning, I need someone. So what we've done, actually just this week, because we're in week 3 right now of having kind of people at home, and we're now in the week of being able to sort of see our resources globally. We're having our central people and culture team reach out to all department heads, and this was a message from our CEO, and I think a lot of these messages need to come from the CEO, to say, to go to each of our department heads and say, what of your team is busy? Which of your teams are not busy? We're actually, because we don't have all of this information centralized, we're the people and culture team is centralizing it on a shared document, and then we have on the same shared document, we have a second tab of the resources or the teams that are busy and what skill sets are required, and then we're trying to match them up and pair them up. It's not an easy challenge, again, with 10 countries and the thousands of people that we have. So we're starting small. We're also trying to, those teams that are raising their hand and saying I'm not busy, we're highlighting them, we're celebrating them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a call center in Wales that is super busy right now for various reasons. We also have a sales team in England that is not as busy. That sales team raised their hand and said, "We're happy to do call center work right now,"
Wow.
and we are promoting that. We're highlighting that across the organization so that people know that it's okay to say you're not busy, and we're going to, reward you for helping out other teams. And so can have a list of other things, but I'll stop there because that's been our biggest challenge, is really that global resource allocation, who's not doing what, who can do what, and how we make those pairings and matchings.
Fantastic.
I think, and kind of building on that too, Meredith, we have an internal gig network. And so we're really encouraging our employees to say, hey, if you do have downtime, don't forget that we have a Microsoft team channel, and people who need extra help, they'll go out there and say, hey, I need this is the skill it requires. And then people can raise their hand, and kind of encouraging that to continue to happen. But we're in the same place where, how do we make sure that people feel like they're providing an impact, they're having an impact, but also the psychological safety. No, we did not have to go remote overnight, but our remote world, like our world changed, because all of a sudden we have elderly parents to worry about. We have children at home, and now we're having to homeschool them. Maybe our spouses are home. There's different things that are happening. So our first focus was our people, and how do we make sure that they feel comfortable and safe, so through communication. So even starting there to say, hey, we know your kids are home. It's okay. We're going to embrace the kids. We're going to embrace them working with us. So we've provided things such as, we have Mindful Monday. So we do meditation on Monday, but now we have a session for kids. We have yoga sessions, but now we have sessions for kids. On Friday, we have Family Friday, Fun Day. And so everybody can come on, and we have, last week I read a children's book, The Tortoise and the Hare. We had a lesson around that. And then we had a special visitor who was a turtle who came to visit. And then we had one of our people experience director, her son Mason, did a show and tell with his lizard. So we try to help them feel okay with what they're working with now. We've done other things like continue to focus on the holistic wellness, but having the community resource groups for homeschooling or toddlers at home, and then elderly care, and then isolation. Are you home alone? Somebody mentioned that earlier, where, we do have people who do work. They're single and they're home alone, and now they don't have their outside world. So making sure that they have plenty of opportunities to continue to connect with us after work or during work, so they're getting their tank filled.
Fantastic. Mike, Tally, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, for us, we're in a bit of a different space, because I think for us, it's actually probably two big things that we're having to deal with because of our employee population. On one side, it's the sudden shift to go from in office to to being remote. So how do we help them be comfortable and make them feel like it's okay? We're a very billable hour organization, so some of it is trying to change the dynamic of what does productive hours look like. Is the productive hours the traditional, I'm in the office from 8 to 5, or is it my productivity may be 2 hours here, 3 hours there, and how do we just help them get comfortable with whatever they're doing, it's okay. Our deliverables are still being met, and however that's happening, that's great. On the other side, it's just keeping our employees safe. We're a nuclear company by what we do, so safety is ingrained in everything that we do. But we're in a different dynamic now because our folks are going out. So while we have people who are working remote, we also have people who are traveling between one state to another state. Up until the Canadian border was shut, they were traveling between the US and Canada. We have a critical mass out in our manufacturing facility. So some of our focus has been different, just in terms of changing even the in the office mentality of, yes, we're a manufacturing plant, but we still have to really push the message of social distancing is still important. we still have, instituted various processes to make sure that those employees in the office still feel like that their safety is just as important as the ones that we've said you can work from home. So I think those two are the biggest dynamics that we're, tackling at the moment.
Fantastic. Tali, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I guess this is more of a personal challenge that I'm facing. One is having a sense of purpose and usefulness. Again, I am so used to interacting with people face to face, and it's really easy for people to approach me if it's in person. But sometimes people are more hesitant when we're remote. And so just being able to reach out and provide my support virtually, that gives me a better sense of purpose. But also we're in the process of goal setting for Q2, and goal setting remotely and is very difficult. It's, you usually have everybody in a room and talking about goals, but now you just have me going back and forth, across stakeholders trying to figure out what the goals are. And it's really like all the more so important now to be hyper focused on what your goals are, what the KPIs that measure success are for your organization. And so that is something I'm kind of trying to tackle right now for the org. So those are some of my personal circumstances.
I read somebody tweeted about this person was saying that he felt that he was in the middle of feeling that he was not doing enough with the overwhelmed of the need to just stay away from everything that's going on. So it is, we're in this borderline of of the challenges that we're dealing with, right? I mean, are we doing enough or we're not doing enough? Am I safe? But how am I dealing with people who may not be as safe as I am? So, or helping them out. So it's a very fine line. We have a lot of questions from the audience, and I want to just get right into them. To the audience, please continue asking your questions. If by any chance I am missing it, is because, well, in LinkedIn Live, when the question has been posted for a while and I don't see it, then it disappears, literally. So just make sure that you post it again, please. I apologize for that. But I want to ask you, for whoever wants to take this upcoming questions. First one is, how is your employee experience being impacted by now working remotely?
I'll take it. I think right now it's a little difficult to tell. I think as everyone has said here, we're as hard as this is to believe. I can't believe that when I say this, I think, wow, it's only 3 weeks. At least for us. And I know different parts of the world may be in different stages of what's happening, but for us it's difficult. I mean, I think so far the employee experience has definitely changed. Right, you're just, depending on your environment, it's different. But the good news for us is that we're still seeing productivity, we're still seeing deliverables met. Our customers are in the same boat, and I think that's really important for everybody to remember. Just as Enrique, you said in the beginning, is everybody is experiencing the exact same thing. So just take that in stride and just know that what you're doing is the same as everyone else in terms of feeling like I've just got to get things done. So, for us, it's tough. It's tough to tell right now. What will be interesting in terms of employee experience will be when we get back to normal, what does normal look like? With regards to everybody has gotten used to this, because right now we see it in our company where, yes, it's only been 3 weeks, but we do get a sense that they're starting to figure it out, right? Especially as they hear the news that, depending on which state you are in here in the US, the stay-at-home shelters are different in terms of the length of time. And I think when people have started to hear that, in some cases it might be till June or it might be till the end of May, what we've seen is that employees start to kind of restructure their home environment if they're working from home, for example. Like in the first week, everybody was probably just sitting at the kitchen table and sitting wherever they could possibly sit. I think now they're starting to get some of the routine down. And so we're starting to see some stabilization, maybe is maybe the right word. So it'll be interesting to see that employee experience pulse kind of after or a little bit longer down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're entering into a new. The first wave of the impact of coronavirus was very shocking for everybody, and not only because of the virus in itself, but also because of all the changes that we were making in such a short period of time, sending everybody to work from home when the infrastructure, the technology, the processes were not in place for that to be effective. Now, after like 3 or 4 weeks, everybody has settled down into that new reality of working from teleworking, and of course, we're going to be entering other waves of shock. As this continues to be an adversity for everybody, but at least in that sense, I think a lot of people are becoming more comfortable with the happy hour online or working online and whatnot. So that's
yeah, I definitely I think to that point, I think that's exactly what our leadership team has been talking about this week, has been that this now feels like we're just now getting settled. To Mike's point, like people are now have a location that they're working at. They're now like starting their day differently. They now are balancing being a parent at home and having to, homeschool their kids from time to time. We have new parents who are like blocking out times in their calendar to make sure that they have time where they can trade off with their partner to watch their child at home. So I think everyone's settling into this new normal for the time being. And I think that's increase the employee experience in the sense that now employees are wanting to engage in virtual happy hours. We at our company we've done virtual lunches where we talk about the crisis. So we actually have mental wellness lunches that we do quarterly. We've now increased the frequency of that so that people can just share their anxieties and be open with each other about what they're experiencing and how they're feeling. And that's gotten really positive critiques and a good way to do that. We also have some people who are very active who are like wanting to wake up and do yoga. So they're doing live yoga that's completely optional for people to engage in. So we have a lot of optional content from like that's both being produced by my team, but also being produced by like employees on their own free will. And so I think like encourage your team to feel, or your company to feel like they can create their own experiences and do their own exciting things during this time. So if people want to just like throw a Zoom, trivia night like we're having tonight, that was completely employee led, and some like 2 employees just really want to do it. I have no idea what it's going to do. We've done Zoom bingo. I have no idea what that is. I did not participate because I don't like bingo, but they did it and it sounded really exciting. It was apparently really technical because you have to make sure you only have a certain number of people so that the bingo board is even. But they did that and that was a fun experience. I think in terms of mental health, that's been a main concern for us. And so I think like one thing we do is we have a $50 stipend. So instead of a gym membership, we do a $50 stipend that people can use for anything. So it can go towards therapy, it can go towards acupuncture, it can go towards a variety of mental wellness things, but it can also be used for the gym. So I would encourage you, if you do have a gym membership or something that is an in-person stipend, adjust that during this time and make it, a blanket cost that people can expense on, a different wellness app or something they can use at home or teletherapy or anything like that. So open up your benefits to make sure that they're adaptable during this time, especially if it's going to go on for a significant period of time. Again, if you have the resources to do so, one thing we've been doing is, like I said, letting people reimburse a second monitor if they're an engineer, so they can remain productive and they feel like they can actually work functionally at work. Like some of our team, I didn't have a desk in my small New York apartment. I'm in my living room that I've set up a console table to be a desk because I don't have enough room for a desk always. So now I'm on a console table, if you know what that is, as my desk. So just making sure that we make adjustments so that you can really feel comfortable and safe, but also feel like you're getting those benefits that you typically would get, is something that we've been looking at, as well as moving. One thing that we really did early, which I think has been really productive, and I would encourage anyone else to do so, is we created a COVID-19 Slack channel because basically a lot of people were sharing in our general channel or sharing in other channels a lot of COVID news, and it was increasing anxiety on the team. And a lot of people were like, I just want to be able to escape the news if I want to. So we've asked our team to really put all of those postings in a centralized place, so that way if people don't want to be a part of it or don't want to see it, they can do that. Because I think one important thing to remember is that we are experiencing this all outside of work. And so to the extent that we can, a lot of people are using work as a distraction, and using work as a way to like really have something to do and feel a little bit normal during this time. So in an effort to do that, I would just make sure that like, to the extent that you can, really decrease anxiety in Slack channels or in your internet or in the news that you do. So we try to centralize and really provide tactical information to our team on COVID. So all of my communications around COVID are very tactical, very purposeful, very thought through communications, and things that I really feel people need to know. So we had our first positive case. So I wanted to make sure that people knew that this case happened after we had already been working from home. So the likelihood that he would have or she would have infected other people in our office is very, very low. So I wanted to make sure people had the information, but I wanted to make sure that we also weren't shaming the person who has it, because I don't think that we should have a stigma around that. So these are different things that I think we really have to be creative about, but we need to be careful about too, because I think it gets oversaturated due to just the level of anxieties around it and the level of changing news that we get from don't wear a mask, don't buy a mask, to now everyone should be wearing masks. Like, you know, the news is changing every day. And so I think that it can get overwhelming and you never really know what the real reality is on the ground and how to really stay safe other than staying in your house.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to switch gears a little bit here because we do have a lot of other questions too, and I want to try to cover as many as possible. And one thing that we were discussing offline, for those of you who are watching this session, is we were trying to get trying to go as tactical as possible during our conversation, because we want to make sure that you walk away with very specific things that you can replicate as an HR leader, as an HR practitioner in your organization. And we've already heard a lot of very tactical things. So I'm hoping that you are either taking notes or that you go back to the recording of this session, which will remain on my LinkedIn, and I'm going to be sharing on a YouTube video tomorrow. But I want to get really tactical about the next couple of questions. Number one is, how are you dealing now with your onboarding, engagement, and mentorship programs? Number one. And number two, and whoever wants to respond to these questions. And the second question is, how are you supporting your corporate leaders during this process? So the two questions are, how are you doing to continue your onboarding, engagement, and mentorship programs in these times of remote work, and how you are supporting your leaders? So anybody wants to jump in and say a couple of things about that? Very tactical if possible.
Sure, I will jump in real quick. I mean, we have been remote, but I think it's good to share kind of what we do with our onboarding and how do we keep people engaged. And so, we still mail out swag and we mail out welcome, letters. And then we have 3 weeks of where we, our first week is around heart. And so we focus on culture, and we have video calls. So we have someone leading those calls. And then they definitely have a learning framework where they go and they have things they have to go do. So they have self-development learning, and then they have another call. And so they have a buddy who walks them through that. And so there's a lot of engagement through the different video calls to keep them on track with what they're doing for the week. And so, for example, this week, tomorrow on Friday, is our heart start call. So I am actually I'm on a call tomorrow where we end the week with our new hires. And so we'll go through and make sure, how was your first week? And we'll have some content around continued content around our behaviors or our culture. And then the next week is more around the smart work. And so we, again, have video calls, and they have learning online they have to do, and then they come back to video calls, and they have people they have to meet. So they have a buddy that really walks them through the process. And they also have, our people experience team, but they have a very structured, like, here's what I have to do when I'm not on the call, and here's what I'm learning, and then follow up with, okay, here's a call, and talk about what you learned, and continue through that process. So I think that, and as they go through each week, it gets more relevant to their actual job. It starts out very high level with culture, then into more of maybe your function, and then more into the job. So it's very structured, and they know what to expect. And we try to make sure they're spending plenty of time with different people and talking through the company and their job.
Awesome. Mike, thank you, Candy. Mike, I think you were going to share something, and then Meredith.
Yeah, for us, we're fortunate in that as I mentioned, we're about 2,500 people. So even though we're not remote, we have a lot of very structured processes. We have a lot of, tools. So our onboarding is done through a platform, done through technology. So a lot of it hasn't changed. I think the biggest difference for us is just making sure that we account for the fact that this person now will start on day one instead of in the office. They will start from potentially their home. So we've had to just, make sure that we're just going back through what our original process was and to see where we could adapt. So, things that we're not adapting, the welcome letter still goes out, the buddy is still assigned, the mentor is still assigned, they're still connecting. It's just in a different way. As I mentioned before, we haven't been in it long enough to really see, but I think it's important to check what your processes are and to make sure that, in theory, if your processes are strong, then they're going to be processes regardless of your situation. There just might be minor tweaks here and there. And Enrique, remind me, what was your second question about?
How you are supporting your leaders during this time.
Yeah, so for us, it's just making sure that before we had our normal monthly staff meetings, we had, our regular interaction from that perspective. What I've done, here now is just change the cadence. Mm-hmm. So for us, for the leaders that I support, we're now, three times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll take 30 minutes. But I think, one of the important things that I've tried to stress with my leadership team is, don't forget us for HR leaders, that they are spending all of their time focused on their people. Mm-hmm. And I tried to make that 3 times a week call not about what's happening in the organization, not about what's, going on in their specific department. It was really kind of kicked off as a platform that this is your time. This is a time for you. So let's talk about, what you guys are doing, and just making sure that, they're taking time for themselves, and not just all of their time and all of their energy is of course outward to their people, but using that time to really, help them with self-care. Because I think it's something that, as leaders, sometimes we forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a really good point, Mike. And I think to Tally's point, like when you've been an in-person workforce and you're used to connecting with team members, or no matter what their level is, in person, and getting able to even just seeing their face and seeing that they're happy, safe, healthy, that they're productive. I think it's even more important to lean on the leaders and make sure that they are acting as your resource as well, and your tool, and hearing about, if people are at home sick, or if they're alone, if they live on their own, if they need additional check-ins, if they, aren't being productive enough or want more assignments, like hearing all those things. I think I'm in a unique place now where, like, I need the leaders even more so to be really, to over communicate with me. So I have on our Friday leadership call, I've already asked them to let me know how people are feeling, because I can see from the engagement of the employees a certain thing. And I've been on Zooms with numerous employees, but I also want to hear from them, like, if they think anyone is struggling, just so that we know and that everyone can communicate that. So I think making sure that they know that it's even more important for them to really monitor their team's engagement and feelings, and positivity. But I also think that it's important, as Mike said, for them to focus on self-care, and for them to feel safe, secure, and kind of not feel like they have to handle all the stress of their team on their own. Because I think that is something that, as a team leader, you often feel like if your team feels more stressed, you start taking that on yourself. And so I think that's something that happened the first 2 weeks, but I think it's finally starting to manage itself a little bit more. But I think that is something that's very important. I think the second thing is also making sure that you acknowledge during this time that a lot of people are single breadwinners. And I know this is kind of a random tidbit, but some of our leaders now, and some of the people on our team, are single breadwinners for the time being, as some of their partners, or significant others, or family members are without work during this time. So I think making sure that you also acknowledge the financial anxiety that is also around this crisis, and just providing any security you can without promising someone that they'll have a job in 6 months, providing some sort of security around the lack of pay cuts, or anything that you could do to really make sure people feel secure in their jobs. I think that's something that a lot of people don't feel right now, and or cannot even begin to fathom that possibility because of the financial stress and burden that they're already feeling at home.
Thank you, Garrison. Meredith, you were going to add something to those thoughts.
I'd rather us get to another question and get to as many questions as we possibly can.
Absolutely. And actually, I have no idea how. It's already 8:45 a.m. Pacific time. I don't know how we've been talking for 45 minutes, but it's amazing. And I think we're going to have to do this again because there will be many questions that will go unanswered during this session. So I'm thinking that we're going to have to do this again very soon. Maybe we do it even on a bi-weekly thing or something. But because we only have just a few minutes left, you all said at the beginning that you were hopeful and you were very positive and optimistic about what's going to happen next, right? The day after tomorrow. I mean, none of us, and I don't think anybody really knows for how long we're going to be in this time of, chaos and crisis and difficulty. Hopefully is, sooner rather than later that we get over this. But there will be a tomorrow. And life will go on, and the world will go on, and we're gonna go, back to either some things that were done before or do things differently. So I want to ask you, what do you envision as your HR practices and your corporate practices in the day after tomorrow? And what I mean by that is, what things do you think should be ditched, out of the way we operated just 4 weeks ago? What new things should be embraced? And let's just focus on that question for now. It's just I'm trying to also help. This question was asked in the chat. I'm just trying to make sure that everybody knows that while we're going through this, and probably 90 to 95% of our mental bandwidth is in operating today and tomorrow and the news and whatnot, there is still a tomorrow. And I'm hoping that all of you can dedicate a little bit of your mental bandwidth to thinking about what's going to happen the day after tomorrow, because we're going to go back to work. The economy hopefully will get back. It may take some time, but anyway, from the HR perspective, what things do you guys think will be ditched out as a practice? What new things we are going to be embracing in this new reality? So Meredith, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I'm hoping that we keep is the proactive connectedness that everybody's doing. So, everything that everybody here mentioned, like, coffee chats and morning yoga and things like that, that should continue. That has, and the word that I had used, Enrique, when we first came on was inspired. I'm inspired by all the creativity that people are bringing, and I don't want that to stop. Yeah. I think I'm also inspired by the kindness that people are showing to their colleagues. It's been fantastic. And now in a time of crisis, people are showing that kindness. That shouldn't stop. Yeah. Now, I think some of the things that I think we may struggle with on the back end is we now have a globally remote workforce, and we know it can happen. So when we took a hard line previously, I want to work from home. Sorry, no, you can't work from home. Well, we're now starting to have those conversations about, all right, do we start to let people work from home? Do we not start to let people work from home? And I think that we're going to go and start to categorize our workforce and sort of say, these people, we know it didn't work well. These people, it did work well, and we may have more flexibility than we did before. And these people can continue to work from home. Mm-hmm. The knock-on effect of that is we're then going to have to look at our leases and our office buildings and those types of things, because our footprint in office spaces is going to start to shrink, et cetera, et cetera. So just a few things that have come to my mind, but overall, I think the proactivity, the creativity that people are bringing to the table is what I hope we keep.
That's fantastic, and I just want to reiterate what you're saying about the sense of community that we have created over this time. I hope that it's interesting that we come together like this, probably not like this before, but in sort of a similar fashion when we go through times of a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, right? When in Katrina here in the US, and the many storms in my home country in Venezuela in 1999, we had a terrible floodings. Hundreds of thousands of people were suffering, and thousands died, and the country got together, but it ended there. right? We didn't make that sustainable. So it's how we make sure that this sense of community is sustained over time. So anybody else wants to jump in and provide some ideas about this? Tali, do you want to share something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I agree with Meredith. Like, I think people have already started asking, like, if we're productive from working from home, can we please continue to work from home once everything returns to normal? So I think that we as HR leaders need to embrace the fact that just as there is a change right now that everyone has to adapt to, we're going to have to experience that again once everyone returns to, there's going to be a new normal. And so we have to brace ourselves for knowing, okay, well, how do we accommodate, new policies, employees, but how do we continue to foster the sense of communication? I've never seen so many people in my company on Zoom as I do now, and that includes with remote folks. And so just continuing that sense of let's interact on video, let's make sure this continues to stay collaborative. Let's make sure to use the right Slack channels to share memes and, have a laugh, and still focus on the emotional and mental health piece of it, because that doesn't get lost. People go through things all the time. So let's, keep that as we go forward, and know that as HR professionals, we will need to go through this process again in a different context of adjusting to the new return to normalcy, or return to 2020 as it should be when we all come back into normal day-to-day life.
Absolutely. Anybody else wants to say something about it?
I was just going to ask, and Mike, maybe you can answer this question. What tactically will you be doing to that community? So I know we want to keep it, and I said I want to keep it, but what exactly can we do to make sure it's sustained?
Well, I mean, one, very tactical thing for us is we, just in terms of normally our practices, I think we're innovative to some extent, but we're also not a tech company or a startup company that is on Slack, and these things are really foreign for us as a company. Maybe individually people are on it and so forth, but something very practical for us that started out of necessity just in the last few weeks is we are in a position, because of the industry we're in, we're still hiring. We've got 100 positions open that we're trying to fill actively. So video interviewing has, become the necessity, and the feedback so far has been really positive. Do I think that we're going to make final decisions just on a video interview? I don't think we're quite there yet, but do I think video interviews will replace the commonality of a phone interview? Absolutely. So, I think some of those things will happen. And I'd say the other thing, Meredith, is I still think you have to be honest with yourself with regards to who your company is and what culture you have as a company. Because while I think that, there will be some people who say, hey, remote works, I also believe that just the culture of our company will say, whew, I'm glad that's over. When can I get back into the office? To that, and I think what I'm hoping that it creates is I'm hoping that we don't move away from or I hope we do move away from sometimes of the automatic answer of no. That we have seen, and the HR team that is in our company has just done amazing things to do what we've done over the last 3 weeks and to support the organization and the leadership teams. But I just hope that we are more open-minded to different things, because we are seeing things happen right now that if you would have asked me a month ago, we would not be doing in our company. And so I just hope that we continue to think that, anything is possible if we know that it works. And I just hope that mindset continues when this is all over.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Garrison and Candy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been in a forced transformation. So like the concept of future of work, which I see someone commenting here, but also I've talked about it, is kind of has been forced upon us. And we're now dealing with some of the things that we've been talking about for some time in the HR industry. And so I think that's really exciting. And I hope that some of these learnings continue on. I don't think every workplace should be 100% remote, and I don't think every workplace will, but I hope that bringing your authentic self to work it
Mm-hmm.
becomes an actuality, in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that I think right now parents are able to have their kids in the background. Parents are able to take time away and work with their kids or spend time with their kids during the workday. There's a flexibility that we're having to allow people, it's kind of forced businesses' hand a little bit, and I hope that stays. I think that one thing, like when we reintegrate, is that I hope that we, as a general workforce, allow people to have that flexibility. So if you have to leave early to attend one of your kids' basketball games, or if you have a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day, or you want to go to therapy in the middle of the day because that's the only appointment you can get. I think that seeing that actually doesn't impact the business is something that's really important. Another comment on the LinkedIn Live was around like trusting your employees and not needing them to be
Mm-hmm.
in the office to prove that they're being productive. And I think that's very true. Like there's been studies, and I think Candy and I have talked about this separately, but there's been studies about showing that remote work actually increases productivity for
Mm-hmm.
years. And yet that like kind of mentality we've always had has been that if people aren't in the office, how do we know that they're working? And so I think that we've been forced to see, okay, actually people are being maybe even too productive. I have some employees that are logging on at 7 a.m. in the morning and answering emails at 8 p.m. at night. And I want to make sure that they're actually like still having some sort of office hours so they don't feel like they have to be always on. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think these are challenges that we're going to have to face. But I really hope that the flexibility remains. I think it will. I mean, the implications of this flexibility will go to DEI, disabled persons, people with kids, people with elderly parents, caregivers, tons of people that typically have struggled to be in the workforce and follow like 9 to 5 typical jobs will now have increased opportunity. I think it'll help with mental health and wellness to really be able to carve out your day and make your day more your own. So I hope that those are things that stay. And I think that being or proving that you don't have to be in person necessarily to get your job done is an important challenge for everyone to realize. Even if your job is better or your personal well-being and health is better by interacting with humans. So I don't think no one will interact anymore or that people won't be in the office anymore. I do think that there are positives that obviously come from that we are now lacking. But I think we've been proven that, or it has been proven that we can be productive in a new normal and in a kind of different culture than just your 9 to 5 clocking in, clocking out mentality. So I'm really excited about that. And that's why I think a lot of us are positive, because I think we've been able to see some of the things that we've all been shouting from the rooftops, and some of our leaders have been forced to see, CEOs have been forced to see that this actually has increased productivity and has made us think differently, which is something that every company wants to do, is innovate. And so I think being forced to innovate is a really exciting thing.
Thank you, Garrison. Actually, I think that the day after tomorrow, everybody will go out and hug everybody else out there. We're going to be hugging and shaking hands and kissing everybody and, running around. And yeah. It's going to be very interesting, whenever we are over this. Candy, your last ideas here before we sign off the call?
Sure. Yeah. We've really been focused on bringing human back. Like that's what we focus on. And I think this is really showing people technology is important, but humans are way more important. It takes both, and we need to focus on that connection. So I hope that really, when this is over, that people do appreciate, and they do want to hug, right, Enrique? They do want to go spend time with those people that maybe before they're like, oh, I'm just going to stay home tonight. And now they're really going to want to make those connections. I think one of the things that we're talking about is we love because we are remote, we don't get to see the families. They don't walk into the office when they're dropping off something, or maybe at the Christmas party. So one of the things that I want to keep is really what we're doing with the families and the children, and having that time. Maybe we can continue some fun things this summer when the kids are off, or doing something that really embraces the family aspect of it, whatever that looks like for the individual. And then I also think that, you really see how your people rally. And Garrison, you mentioned how it's not driven by just HR. People are doing their bingo and their trivia night. And I love that. And part of being a successful remote company is that your people are kind of self-service. They kind of own their own development. They create things. They're always thinking outside the box and trying new things. And I think I would love to see that continue, where employees feel like they have options where they can step up and create new experiences that really impact the overall employee experience. It's not just our job. It's really a partnership.
Absolutely. Well, Candy, thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to say, just to send you off to your day, that the very best that we can do in this massive, once in a lifetime perhaps, social global experiment that we're going through is to make sure that we learn about, from this experience. Because the worst thing that can happen to us is that we resolve all that's going on to go back to what we were doing before, in the same way we were doing it before. If we take this opportunity and find the silver linings, not disregarding the suffering and the pain that is going on out there, but making sure that we still bring out the lessons learned, the positive things, and we improve and remake the way work is done, and we think about work, and we think about family, and we think about healthcare, and we think about government and our relationship, or the relationship of all these things, then I think we're going to be in a way better place than we were just 3 or 4 weeks ago, when this at least exploded here in the United States, and 2 or 3 months ago when it exploded in the world. So I am hoping that this becomes the largest ever global experience for us to say we can't be the same way we were before, right? When people lack, they were not trusted by their leadership, or when everybody was forced to come to work, regardless of what they were going through in their personal lives, or like somebody said on LinkedIn, when if you connected on a Zoom call, you would have been frowned upon because the dog was barking in the background. When now that's just natural, right? I mean, everybody that just like laughs at that. So I hope we can come to a place where more flexibility, more love, more empathy, more understanding, more caring, more tolerance, but ultimately putting people first, being more human becomes our real center of attention, the center of everything that we do, and not just, profits or some of the things that are, as we're seeing, even less important in these times. So thank you to this amazing panel. I think we're going to have to do this again because we got a lot of questions that, were not addressed. So I'm hoping that we do it again. And thank you, everybody, from wherever you were connecting. I hope you continue to join the things that we're doing with Hacking HR and all the panels. Next week, we have a number of things lined up, including several workshops. We have panels where we're going to be interviewing a lot of people. So, we will continue to bring all these learning opportunities for everybody to make sure that while we go through this crisis, we also dedicate some time to learn and develop ourselves to get ready for whatever comes after this crisis. So thank you to the panel, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.